Okay, welcome back. I hope you're having a great evening. It was pretty crazy day today. It's now December 13th, 2017. And for those of you that have been watching the news, yeah, it looks like Roy Moore lost the Senate election in Alabama to Doug Jones. And I was being cautious earlier. I didn't explicitly predict he would win. It was leaning towards him when I put up the first broadcast, and I still stand by the statement that many of the Alabamans were making a declaration that they oppose the rest of the country putting their values on Alabama. Now, the fact of the matter is that more people voted against Roy Moore. They voted for Doug Jones, and you can't deny it. And there's no point in pretending that there was some sort of funny business yet because it's too early to tell. And I'm sure that plenty of that will proceed. But I think that we can start giving a few takeaways from this election, which was one of the strangest that I've seen in a long time. Now, for those of you that are mistaken, I had somebody who popped onto my Facebook earlier when I put a post on talking about what I'm about to talk about now. And she said, "Oh, you're going to remember this for all the fake news that you spread." Well, what have I spread that's fake news? Essentially, all I've said is that I believe in the presumption of innocence, and I still believe in the presumption of innocence. That does not mean that I support explicitly the candidacy of Roy Moore. I don't know if I would vote for him, even with a opponent like Doug Jones, an opponent like Doug Jones. I mean, the fact is that I've not voted in elections before. I think that potentially down the line, if there's a shift back to the politics of two parties with virtually identical platforms or virtually identical actions as opposed to their platforms, yeah, I could go back to not voting. But what are the real takeaways from today? It is, first of all, that the people of Alabama, they're going to be ignored from now on. Uh, the next election is in 3 years in Alabama. It's in 2020, so slightly less than 3 years. It's going to be when the next presidential election is going on, and then I find it kind of strange to contemplate that that's going to be a competitive race. But again, today it was proven that yeah, the Republicans can blow this race. Now, why did they blow that race? We'll get to it. But I'd like to emphasize that no, this is not the beginning of a new renaissance of Democrats loving Alabama. That in fact, if you look at some of the feed from earlier tonight, let me see here. Here, there's one guy that says 652,000 people in Alabama voted for a pedophile today. Future politicians, you know the work you have to do to reach a population that matters more than we all know. America, education, and decency starts at home. So this person, he doesn't believe in the. First of all, he doesn't believe in the presumption of innocence. But second of all, what Moore is accused of is not really pedophilia. It would be called, and it's not even statutory rape because there was no action. There was one example of a woman who accused him of touching her when she was 14. Now, if that accusation proved to be true, absolutely, then there would be reason to accuse him of being a perv. But that's not pedophilia. Actually means that you are attracted to children. This is an exercise in hyperbole. What's another one here? Somebody says Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is looking down on Alabama with a huge smile. Well, I find that very doubtful. When Martin Luther King just recently was revealed, for example, that that the FBI claims, according to its files, that he had extramarital affairs. So don't you think that if that were to be true, based on FBI evidence, not on the evidence of women who talked to the Washington Post, but based on the FBI, don't you think that it's possible that Martin Luther King had more to identify with Roy Moore than with Doug Jones? Well, who knows? I hate reactions where they try to bring in people that they here we go. We got Michelle Obama. Well, Michelle Obama, what's it called? Gifts. Then you got Sean King. Tonight was a complete repudiation of Donald Trump. He won Alabama by 28% last year. Tonight, Roy Moore lost by 2%. A 30% flip in 1 year is completely unheard of. Even Trump's lies today about never meeting the women who accused him of sexual assault dug his grave deeper. But Sean King, I mean, talk about somebody who's been caught lying about injuries, caught lying about race, caught calling his own mother a whore, or basically saying that she had an affair to produce him. So you have people that they've been their own credibility is basically zero, and they're zeroing in on Roy Moore as if they have anybody to that any reason to wave their championship belt. No, there is no championship belt today. If Roy Moore had won, there would be no championship belt. Yeah, you would see a lot of these Republican or hardcore conservative people dancing around and trash talking the liberals. Yeah, and that's exactly the issue, that people are missing the real point of this, which is that we're losing the presumption of innocence as a principle in American legal thinking. You can now make an accusation against somebody through the media, through a so-called credible publication such as the Washington Post, and then without without due process, without verification, you can railroad somebody's career. So the main takeaway tonight is, what's going to happen with these allegations? Are these women going to proceed with any legal action against Roy Moore? Are they going to sue him? Are they going to? Well, why exactly was Gloria Allred at these press conferences talking to representing these women? Why was a lawyer there if there is not going to be any lawsuit, not going to be any legal action? Well, that is the real question here, and in my opinion, I don't think there's going to be anything coming of it. Now, if I were Moore, I would probably sue the Washington Post. I would sue Gloria Allred. I would sue these people and tell them, you've assassinated my character. Yes, I've had questionable actions in my life, but you can't just convict me by the power of the pen, by the power of the pixel now, because it's all spread over the internet, and these global conglomerates, these media conglomerates that people call the mainstream media. Remember that they're now asking. I mean, remember what was it, a couple of weeks ago? Facebook was telling people to voluntarily send them their nudes in order to test cyberbullying and revenge porn restrictions or whatever, or their revenge porn, their security standards. Well, these companies are now, I'm sorry to say, but everybody who's watching this and everybody who's not watching this but uses the internet has something that they do on the internet that they don't need other people looking at, whether it's buying things, whether it's looking at things, whether it's creating things, whether it's writing things, it's saying things that you don't mean. If somebody, for example, if somebody's going through an addiction and they're seeking counseling or something, and they don't want it to be known, well, that can be known now, and we're running into an era of exactly the type of Big Brother observation that people have been fearing for You know, decades. It's George Orwell. Absolutely. I mean, that's. I have Carlos here, not joining in on the chat, or he's joining in on the chat, not joining in on the broadcast. Maybe some other time. He says that's not new. This is what happens when when a local election is elevated in national news. You are reading tweets from random people. Well, Sean King is a well-known figure, but you know, there's I could point you to some other ones. Okay, we have Stefan Molyneux, Louise Mensch. She said, "Good night, all. As we celebrate, please remember that a lot of lifelong Republicans voted for a Democrat today because it was the right thing to do. They didn't vote for a party; they voted for a good man." No, I don't. I don't believe that. For you know, nothing against Doug Jones, but I don't think that they voted for Doug Jones because he's a good guy. Because we don't know much about him because the entire race was about Roy Moore. No disrespect to Doug Jones, I don't know him, and I don't think he's going to be. You know, he's going to go into the Senate. He's going to have plenty of company. There's going to be plenty of people that have the exact same views as Doug Jones. That's fine, but the race was not about Doug Jones. That was clear from the get-go. Nobody was scared that he was going to run. He won the primary by a massive margin. He had virtually no need to campaign, although he did campaign, but the media did the campaigning for him. So, you know, he deserves a victory for his efforts, but the victory was really accomplished not by the candidate, but by, you know, external forces. Mega Man says they try to bring in a supposed moral person claiming a moral high ground, and Denise says Moore should sue these women. Well, a lawsuit against these women, I think it would be a lot less feasible than suing the Washington Post. Well, you know, that depends. Taking on the Washington Post, of course, you're taking on basically the Amazon corporation. But what we're talking about is not whether you want Moore to be in the Senate or Jones to be in the Senate. Jones won the race. And anybody who starts now talking about overturning the results or having an audit or something, I'm telling you, whether you think you're right or not, it's not going to happen. And Moore, I think, was trying to, you know, lately he was trying to, probably in the last few hours or last hour or so, he was trying to say that he wanted a recount. Well, he's lost by a margin that's large enough that he cannot get a recount. You know, that's a major problem. So, you know, whereas I think some people would like this saga to stretch on, and it could stretch on based on the amount of shit that's been stirred up because of it. Unfortunately, no, Alabama is not going to get anything out of this race. They're not going. If Roy Moore had won, this is kind of. I mean, does that preserve the status quo? Not really. It kind of keeps it. There would have been a next step of all this procession of scandals and of assaults against the Trump administration by the media. And that's where I have to get to the part where I think that this whole race shows the worst mistake in the Trump administration's history. Flynn Dick says no one has ever cared about Alabama. I agree absolutely. And you know, I've you know, chatted with a couple people from Alabama, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't have cared about the race. I've never been to Alabama. I don't know Roy Moore. I've never, you know, for me to talk about this race as if there's like these grand stakes to it. A lot of people will forget this race just like they forgot the Montana race last year. Maybe many of you don't remember that in Montana there was a media frenzy over this Greg Gianforte and that other guy Rob Quist for about a week, and when the race was over, everybody forgot about Montana and everybody forgot about South Carolina, which was never really given attention that it may have deserved. Everybody forgot about Georgia, where there was the Karen Handel and John Ossoff race. It was forgotten immediately because it was inconvenient for the media to show it. Now, they may wave the flag in the air that Doug Jones won this race. And, that's kind of funny. But when the smoke clears, the people of Alabama have gotten nothing out of this race. It's been a complete clusterfuck for them. Were any central issues to the Alabama economy discussed during this race? No. Was anything regarding their views on immigration, or their views on abortion, or their views on let's say, Head Start programs, if you're one of these progressives, or their views on sanctuary cities? That was not a topic of discussion of the race, because the entire race was personalized around the accusations against Roy Moore. And I find it very ironic that there were so many people that they were going about around the around the world talking about the Me Too and the hashtags and everything. Well, next year that whole movement is going to burn out. I have bad news for you. There's no issue here where people can maintain momentum unless you get to the point where we're really going to be doing this witch hunt on a 24/7 basis. Carlos says there is no surprise on lack of policy talk in the media. Not new. This is politics as usual. Yeah, it's politics. Well, it's politics as usual, but in a more. I think it's more concentrated. I think it's a little unusual in that they focused on these two people, or on this one person. They completely ignored this Doug Jones guy because they zeroed in on Roy Moore. And you know what? For him, I would really call this a character assassination. It doesn't matter that the guy is kind of a whack job. It doesn't matter that he's a weirdo and he rode into the polling station today like some sort of fucking Lone Ranger or something. That was a dumb move. And the statement his wife made in the past 2 days, if I thought was funny at the time, where she responded to a question. The question was retarded. The question was whether she's an anti-Semite, and it's based on nothing. It's based on the fact that Roy Moore said that George Soros is going to hell, and therefore they convoluted that to mean that he was saying he was going to hell because he was a Jew. Well, that never appeared in the actual quote. It never appeared in the actual remarks that he was talking about Roy Soros's religion. And I can tell you that because I listened to the speech and I read the remarks, and it didn't appear there. And I'm Jewish, and it was a bullshit question. Well, she gave a dumb answer to the bullshit question. She said, "Well, our attorney is Jewish." Well, that's a stupid answer. Mega Man says it's more like a showboating race, not an actual political race. Alabama is just a shiny new toy to put up till a bigger toy shows. Exactly. Every state. You have to understand that they're basically treating us like Hunger Games in a certain sense. There's all these regions, and they look at the regions as these quaint little places where you can talk about showdowns, and they'll probably show that if it happens in Philadelphia, they'll have fucking Jim Acosta there or Anderson Cooper pretending to eat a cheesesteak, pretending to eat it because he's probably allergic to something in it, because he's pretty much living in a fishbowl in Atlanta the rest of his life. These people are, they kind of play with the fate of humanity by, sensationalizing stories. They sensationalize literally everything. They sensationalize anything to do with a topic that they think can gain them viewership or gain them advertising. And, I think that we've seen really. There's a defeat for Moore, and he probably deserved it to a certain extent. He didn't defend himself in the best way possible, and he sounded incompetent in many ways. There were plenty of people that were saying at the outset that this guy was just not really. He doesn't know how to speak to the national audience anyway, and that he's depending on only the people of Alabama to judge him. Well, once I think that people of Alabama were influenced. Carlos says, "Why is this news? This has been going on for decades. National news taking on local races are treated like used towels." Did you say towels? Well, okay. You're saying, why is this news? Well, I could spin that question around to you. Um, we have a race. We use toys. Okay, that was my second guess. We have a Senate seat for a state that was occupied by the former Attorney General. It does have implications as far as legislation. It could be news for different reasons. It doesn't have to be news for the reasons that it was. And you know, there's a real issue here, and I think conservatives need to start, or at least people that support the administration or support some of the goals of the administration. And you know, I'm trying to just cast a wider net here. The real topic has to be that Donald Trump made a huge catastrophic error by appointing Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. First of all, he's been an idiot as Attorney General, and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And he pretends that he's like, this is a problem with a lot of these people that are career politicians. He recused himself from all these investigations, and now we're seeing that these investigations were in fact tainted. And this was a person that Donald Trump stood behind when there were all these smear campaigns against him for being a Klansman. Well, what did Donald Trump get in return? He got somebody who recused himself automatically, you know, because of a certain, you know, because he had been active on the campaign. he said, well, I have to recuse myself from the investigation. Well, if that's the case, then Donald Trump should have appointed an attorney general to begin with that was simply not involved in politics, somebody that was just a career prosecutor. And I get it that would have been a difficult thing to do, but I've said one of the options would have been, you have that list of judges that he had before he was going to nominate Neil Gorsuch. So he would have nominated Gorsuch. Okay, and the person who was the runner-up, he would have said, well, you're going to get my attorney general position. And that would have been the solution. What did he do instead? He opened up a seat in Alabama where, you know, unfortunately, it's much more of an issue to guard a Senate seat. Carlos well, yeah, I think so. Carlos says he basically agrees with me. I think we're in agreement on that. But you know, there's a real issue here where you know, people on the Republican side, they're belly aching. They're not belly aching to the degree that you know, Clinton supporters did, and they're not belly aching to the degree that Sanders supporters did, justifiably, because he was screwed over literally by the race. But they're belly aching over the wrong thing, and what they should be belly aching over is the fact that there's a party in Washington that has absolutely nothing standing behind it. They have no roots. The Republican Party is a fraud. It's a fraud to its voters, because we vote for these people. If you do vote Republican, I personally, I prefer to vote you know, independent. Sometimes there's a lot of times where I won't even vote in a race, you know, if I fuck local elections, because they're meaningless in my city. You basically vote in the same thieves over and over again. So, quote unquote, Republican voters have to finally get serious and say, fuck you to Mitch McConnell. And he's coming up in 2020. But until then, you know, you're going to have a lot of conservatives who come out on, talk radio, these idiots like that guy, Hugh Hewitt, and Michael Medved, these people who have been established Republicans for decades. They were never Trumpers, but if there was no Trump, they would have been never changers, because they don't change. They worship Ronald Reagan, and they basically rub their nose in his statue's ass and whatever, and they think anything Ronald Reagan did, well, we don't have to come up with new ideas because Ronald Reagan must have had those ideas already. Well, no. Ronald Reagan died over a decade ago, I think. I don't remember what year it was. I know Nixon died in '94. And if you're a conservative, or if you're conservatism shouldn't mean that you don't know anything about coming up with new ideas. It should mean that you find ways to keep the things that work and change the things that don't. I know there's a lot of progressives that would say, "Oh, that's what we do." Well, maybe we share a few traits. I was talking to a progressive yesterday on this stream. Um, it's not as if somebody who wears a different label doesn't have good goals in mind or doesn't want change. But the people who have been in charge of this party for so long, no, they're not going to want any change. They're not going to want to do anything different. What's Michael Medved going to do tomorrow? He's going to go on his radio show out of Seattle, Washington, a state that hasn't been competitive Washington, the state, hasn't been competitive for years. And he's squandered any, any foothold he's had there because he's an idiot on the radio and he can't talk to normal people day to day. He's going to say this. He's going to say, well, Roy Moore was this fire-breathing asshole. I'm paraphrasing because he wouldn't curse, and even if he wasn't on the radio. And we need to elect people that are respectable and that have credentials and that they have good bona fides and whatever. And that they conform to this whole laundry list of Republican standards. Well, what does that sound like? That sounds awfully like what Hillary Clinton did to the Democratic Party. That sounds a lot like what Mitt Romney did to the Republican Party. That's the problem here, and they're going to run Steve. They're already trying to run Steve Bannon out of the Republican Party, saying, "Oh, how did you lose Alabama? How did you lose Alabama?" Well, it wasn't Roy Moore. It wasn't. Well, technically, it wasn't Roy Moore, but although he did lose the race, but it wasn't Steve Bannon that lost Alabama. It was the establishment Republican Party that lost the race because they don't have any commitment to anything that is a universal right for Americans. And the universal right I'm talking about is due process and the presumption of innocence. They don't care that this is a person who, flawed as he is, he deserves a full hearing. A 30-day window to an election is not a good amount of time to investigate dozens of allegations that suddenly crop up after 40 years. I'm sorry. And I don't know how many times I have to say this. I wasn't really a Roy Moore supporter. Okay, I was certainly not a Doug Jones supporter, but I don't live in Alabama. It doesn't matter whether I supported him or not. It matters whether he got a fair hearing or not. It matters whether the people of Alabama were afforded the correct, or not correct, but like a varied and rigorous debate about what's going on. So I'm sorry for those people out there that are saying, it's good because it would have been a shame on the Senate that Roy Moore would have been elected. Well, what's really inevitable is that we will now see that nobody's going to care whether these allegations were true. If they're proven to be false, nobody's going to apologize for them. And some of them could be proven true, others could be proven false. Some of them we will never. I think none of them will actually know, because where's the evidence? Where can you actually see that? A yearbook signing is not real evidence. I'm sorry to tell you. Some sort of gift card. Okay, some sort of gift card with a signature is not evidence of some sort of gross sexual imposition or any other sexual crime. What has to be, Kay Wiley says bittersweet election outcome. We have to remember that what you're watching with Roy Moore happens in sports and it happens in entertainment. I was watching yesterday, and I was talking to number 80 yesterday. He calls himself number 80. We were talking about briefly some of these NFL players that were accused of sexual assault. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're going by the standards used in the Roy Moore case, those guys are already guilty. Okay, they don't get a chance to talk about, they don't get a chance to prove their innocence. Matt Lauer, that was a case where there were, complaints over a period of time. Okay, it was over a period of time. They were hushed up, but it was over a period of time. None of this, none of this cropped up until election season, and it's a disservice. It's a disservice to the people of Alabama that this is what they get. Now, Carlos was saying earlier, well, this shouldn't surprise anybody. Why should people be surprised that the media completely spun stuff and made the race about something that it's not supposed to be? Well, yeah, that's. I'm not saying you should be surprised. I'm saying that you should fear what's coming ahead, because we're seeing a generation that is getting used to major decisions in our country's management and in its administration being decided through blackmail and salacious rumors. How long do you how long do you need to find out whether they're true? If you look at, did I keep this book here? Anyway, there's a book I was reading that I finished yesterday. I think I left it upstairs, but it concerns the Jennifer Flowers case. And Jennifer Flowers, this was an affair. Okay, fine. An affair is not the same as a rape, or it's not the same as a sexual assault. But in the Jennifer Flowers case, this woman dated Bill Clinton, had sex with her, and had a full relationship with her for a long, long time. Allegedly, it was 12 years, and he denied it for the entirety of his first term, claimed that it was a complete lie. There was audio tape of conversations between him and her where they were flirting and talking dirty and whatever. He said that it was tampered tape. He said that the evidence was tampered with, that it was edited or something. And, he never denied that it was his voice, but he denied that he had an affair with Jennifer Flowers. Well, under courtroom testimony in the Paula Jones case, he admitted that he had an affair with Jennifer Flowers, and then he denied that he had an affair with Monica Lewinsky. And as we all know, while he was telling the truth about one thing under oath that he'd lied about for years while he was not under oath, he was simultaneously telling a lie under oath about something that we would discover was true 2 years later. And then everybody decided that it was a joke. It was the funniest joke when I was probably 13 years old when he found out that Bill Clinton was getting beaches in the White House. He was getting, HJs and cigar action and stuff like that. It was the funniest shit in the world. Nobody thought that he had to resign from the White House. And I'm sorry if I have to keep bringing up Bill Clinton, but it's an excellent example of somebody who railroaded and pretended to, and he ignored all of these allegations for years because he was saying, well, I have to get on with the business of the country, and I have to, the people depend on me, and and his wife was saying it was a vast right-wing conspiracy. Well, what was the vast right-wing conspiracy that put a stain on that dress? I think that was the right nut conspiracy. It was your right testicle, Mr. President. That's what did it. And that's what it is. Okay, so Roy Moore, it's possible he's guilty. It's possible he's guilty. Will we ever know? I want to know how. I want to know how you can know that something like this that happened 40 years ago is true or not true. Some more. Sorry for going on a rant there, but some more comments here. Mega Man says, when a Democratic person gets called a pedo, the Republicans should beat said person down. No, sorry, guy. I mean, I know you're saying this I hope you're saying this sarcastically, because what I would say is that the presumption of innocence should hold. But when they have those standards applied to their own people, look, I think it's possible that tomorrow Al Franken can go up in front of the podium and say, you know what, I take back that resignation. I don't think that I think I'm just going to stay in the Senate. Nothing's been proven. It's a fucking photo, but photos can be photoshopped, right? I mean, he's in the Senate. He can just take back his resignation. Nothing's stopping him. K. Wiley says an accused man loses, but a baby killer wins. Yeah, but I mean that's you can't pretend that this wasn't known. I mean, I knew that it's possible that he would. I thought that Moore would win, but it's not like I was sure of it. And I was, my confidence was kind of lagging due to the, there just wasn't much to hold me up in this. And like I said, I wasn't crazy about Roy Moore. I think some of his beliefs were kind of, he's out of his mind. That they were kind of, he expressed them in a very, you kind of wonder if how did this guy become a federal or a state judge, a state Supreme Court judge? He just, sometimes the things he said were really, they revealed that this wasn't the most sophisticated mind. Kay Wiley says an accused man loses, but a baby killer wins. Zizor says recount needed, and Franken had a recount and won. Well, yeah, but I think with Franken, the margin was closer. So look, I know you guys are pissed off. I'm kind of I'm kind of bummed out about what's lying ahead. But I'm not like these TYT idiots from last year that were basically ready to they're ready to have like one of those alien xenomorphs jump out of their chests over their election loss. But yeah, there's a real problem coming up ahead when you can just shout rumors of rape and people are expected to believe them. Kay Wiley says Alabama will learn the horrible mistake they made of electing a Democrat, but I can see why 1.5% of the vote was a write-in candidate. If you add that vote for Moore and the write-in votes, more wins. Well, some of them might be write-in. That's the same thing that Democrats complained about when Al Gore lost. They complained that Ralph Nader voters fucked them over. It's the same thing that Hillary Clinton said when she lost and she blamed Gary Johnson and Jill Stein voters. It's like, bitch, if people wanted to vote for you, they would have voted for you. If people wanted to vote for Roy Moore, they would have voted for Roy Moore. The media intimidated them from doing it, but at the end of the day, you have to be smart enough to know that you can go out and vote for whoever you want, or you can stay home. And those people decided to stay home, and they'll have to kind of they'll have to process that. A lot of those people are probably happy about it. Establishment Republicans, they don't give a fuck. They're fine with it. They are fine with having Doug Jones as their senator, because they don't really have any real creative juices in their brains. They're stuck in this era where everything Republican has to be Ronald Reagan. That's why if you're a free thinking person, you don't affiliate with a party. You say fuck it to the parties. You guys don't represent me. You've never helped me. All you do is you sell me out to the special interests. That goes for both parties. They're both complete frauds. And this blackmailing could drop down to the common man's job. Yeah, exactly. No due process, just fired. It's a big lie between moral and asshole. This generation meets asshole. I keep thinking. I go to work every day, and I'm thankful. I work in a place where people really are not on edge all the time about political stuff. But things can change, and a lot of these people that it used to be when I was growing up in the '90s. I thought in college, that was where you would go. You'd get free expression. There was a coffee shop. There were those people with the the stupid what do you call it, slam poetry. You could say whatever the fuck you want. It's not like that today. The slam poetry has to be screened for certain topics. It's liberalism has ruined itself. It used to be they believed in open debate and open ideas. They don't do that anymore. That's why a lot of people. That's probably why I kind of drifted away from liberalism. Lisa, thanks for tuning in, says if people are elected based on innuendo or rumors and media mafia, we are descending into third world government. And then Carlos says, well, the real question is, if they didn't vote third party, what would they have done? I saw a small poll that says that those people would have not voted at all. Look, the idea that we blame people that voted third party or voted not at all, that's I didn't vote in 2008. I thought Obama and McCain were full of shit, and I didn't vote in 2008. In 2012, I did vote for Romney, and right after I left the voting booth, it was like instant buyer's remorse. I said, There's nothing I believe in this guy. He's a fake, and he's proven himself to be a fake. And I kind of, I kind of have to admit it, that I voted for a guy who I thought was complete garbage, and I knew it when I was writing, or when I was marking the box. So yeah, Carlos is right. Carlos is right a lot, but there's people have to start resisting this whole culture of instant guilt, this culture of assassination by accusation. It's a real problem right now. Thanks, Angel, for tuning in. I know you've been in kind of a duel with a bunch of people lately. It says Doug Jones will just be another Democrat out to try and destroy Trump. I was hoping that Roy Moore would win. Mad Dodge says, "What's up?" You know what's up, dude. How's it going out there in Oregon? So I'm going to close for tonight. And yeah, it's kind of a frustrating night. Roy Moore losing. Maybe it's better that he wasn't in the Senate, because we would have had another saga. We would have had to deal with Mitch McConnell fucking around and saying, "Oh, I'm not going to seat him. Oh, he's a disgrace to the body," or whatever. The whole body is a disgrace. The Senate is garbage already. Even if Roy Moore was guilty, you have a guy in the Senate who went to see underage prostitutes, Bob Menendez, with much stronger evidence against him, much stronger evidence against Bob Menendez of New Jersey. But nobody's complaining about him, because he's been in there. It's like, once you're in there, it's hard to get you out. That's how the Senate is. KY Lee says the left doesn't believe in Christian values, so it's hard for them to understand that more could change. Look, I don't care whether he's a Christian or whether he's a Buddhist or whether he's a Zoroastrian or whether he's a Scientologist. But if those charges were to be proven true, yeah, I would say that it doesn't matter whether he could change. What I care about is that there's a presumption of innocence in our justice system, but not in the media doesn't have to hold by that. So they believe that they can come out and they can spread rumors about people, that they've done the same thing. They said, I mean, you guys watch YouTube. Mad Dodge, I know you watch this. They called PewDiePie a Nazi. They called him, some gamer from Sweden. They called him a Nazi based on nothing, on nothing. They did the same thing to Roy Moore in the past few days. That stuff is based on bullshit. It does nothing, and maybe they are targeting him because he's a Christian, but that's not the point. If they were targeting him because he was whatever race or religion it is, it's a major problem. It's accusation for assassination, character assassination. Yeah, Angel, you gotta kind of chill out, man. You live in Minnesota. Go like what is it? You go out there, go gopher hunting or something. But yeah, we're living in a very problematic era. A lot of the things that we talk about and that we want to, we want to have people come and have a discussion where they're not afraid to say what they mean. Kylie says, or K Wiley, I don't know what your name is. He says, "I like your channel, fair and balanced." No, I don't think it's fair and balanced. I'm just saying what I think. I don't. I mean, you can come on. I believe you're probably like some sort of Christian person, which is fine. You can come on. You can say whatever you want, and I expect you to say whatever you want, and I can say whatever I want in return. And we're not going to get some sort of thought police come and look at us. But there's an issue where you have earlier today, two friends I know got into an argument. Two people that don't know each other. They got into an argument on my Facebook feed, and they started trolling each other. One of them was trolling harder than the other. Said, "Hey, back off. It's enough." And he went back off. I said, "You know what? I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna leave this chat. I'm gonna go visit my dad. You guys can fuck around all you want, but really, this is ridiculous." But that's the way you deal with discussion that you don't like. You take a step back and you say, you guys keep going, but I'm not gonna be a part of this. I'll just, I'll do something else. That's not what the mainstream media wants. They want to shut down that type of discussion. They want that discussion to be used against the people that are having it, and that's why they're just not trusted. So good night to Mad Dodge, Angel, K. Wiley, Carlos, who was it Lisa earlier, Mega Man, Zizor, Dade Murphy. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for all of it. I'm sure some of you are pretty frustrated. Look at he's he fucked up a lot too. This was Moore's loss too. It's not people shouldn't like make him out to be some sort of like he's some sort of Sir Galahad or something, or he's Rocky Balboa. He just needs another fight. He needs a a rematch with Apollo. That's how they're gonna make. It's fucked up. He lost. It would have been a fucked up situation if he would have won too, because we would have had to deal with that. But it's over, and hopefully we'll hear less about it soon. And I hope I'm not going to be doing any more videos about it. So have a great night.